Alrighty. Let's roll some dice, shall we? A couple things to take a look at here. One which is kind of straightforward, and one that probably takes a little bit of thought to put together. So let's start with sum of roll. You see that we're getting in a list of lists where each one is a roll, right? And then we just want to take the sums of each of these and make a list with the results back out, correct? I feel like we're having some deja vu right now. This is like the walkthrough, basically, right? It's almost identically the walkthrough. Just to keep things a little interesting, though, let's mix it up a little bit. I know we solved that walkthrough like 2 or 3 different ways. Let's solve it one more time. We did, let's see, we did 2 loops where they were both by value. We did one and one. Let's do both by index this time, just to mix it up a little bit. We'll say for I in range, length of the double list. And then I want to make, whoa, why did it indent so far? Did I forget a parenthesis? I did. That's why it indented so far. And then we'll say for j in range, length of double list at I, right? So this loop is now, they're both by index. In the past, we did by value, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're just going to do both by index this time, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. So what else do we need? We need those, do I still have the walkthrough up here? Actually, that might be handy to refer to. I do, yeah. I need this empty list, and I need this sum, right? So let me come back down here. I need an empty list. Results, oh my gosh. Equals empty list. And then sum roll equals 0. And now this is where things are going to change a little. I forgot the parentheses again. What's going on? It's been a long day, you guys. I need to do the sum, and it's going to look a little different because I set my loops up differently this time. How's it going to look different? What am I going to need to do? Sum roll plus equals what? Last time I would have just put j there, but that's not going to work because j is not a value; it's an index now. So how do I get the values out of the list now? That's the tricky part. What do I say? Double list. So what I heard was double list bracket j. We're getting warmer. We're not quite there yet, though. If I have a list that looks like this, how do I pull out the 5? What would I say? I and j. I need 2 of them, right? So does it look like this? Bracket, bracket? Or is it a comma? I actually forget the syntax for this. It's not a colon. I know that it's not a colon. I think it's this. I think it's this. Let's try it out. And then once we have the sum, we will say results.append sum roll. All right. And then return. We got to return. Looks very, 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 very similar to the walkthrough. I'm not sure that it's correct. Let's see. Pass, pass. Yeah, it worked. It worked. 2 indexes. One to get me the roll that I want, the roll that I'm on, which is I, and then the number in the roll. Again, we're using 2 loops here, and if it helps clarify things, explain what these loops represent in English, right? For each roll, I is the roll that I am on, right? For each value in the roll, j is value, right? Write it out in English. Make a note so that you know what those loops represent. If you can't look at a loop and explain to me in English what that loop is doing for you, you probably don't need it, right? Maybe you don't need that loop. Or maybe you wrote it a little, maybe you need to rewrite it a little bit differently so that it does make more sense. I always want to be able to describe what these loops are doing in English. So this satisfies sum of roll. If you use something that looked like the walkthrough, though, that's fine too. That would have worked just as well. I think you literally could have copy-pasted the walkthrough and then just changed a couple variable names and gotten the job done for that one. Any questions? All right. The Yahtzee's harder, so let's take a look at this. This one's more difficult. It's going to take in another double list, so it's going to look something just like this, right? Except for now we're searching for Yahtzees, where all the dice have the same value. All the dice have the same value. And they give you a hint. You might want to create a helper function that takes individual rows of the list. So what would that helper function do? That helper function would check to see if all the values are the same, and then probably just return like a true or false would be what I'm envisioning, right? True if they're all the same, false if they're not. Because that's all we care about. We don't care what the actual values are. We just care if they're all the same. So let's start there. We'll come back to Yahtzee. Let's start with that. Def all values equal, right? List. How do I check to see if all the values in a list are equal? This is a tricky problem. This is a tricky problem. Does anybody have any ideas in English? I see people pointing, calling you out, putting you on the spot. Yeah, can you describe it in English? Yeah, just... Okay. Okay. Perfect. Count the list value, or count how many times the first value in the list shows up in the list. If that's the same as the length, they all must be the same. Perfect. Perfect. That's how you do it. There's slight variations on that approach. Another variation might be compare every value in the list to the first value. If I find one that doesn't match the first value, then they're not all the same, right? It's a similar approach. It's a similar approach. The nice thing about the way you suggested is I don't think it requires a loop necessarily, right? Or maybe it does. Maybe I'm misinterpreting. I mean, we can write it using a loop, and I think I might use a loop just because I'm the teacher and I'm going to say we're going to use a loop. I think there is certainly a way that doesn't require a loop, though, and if you discovered it, then kudos. Kudos to you. But let's write a loop. We can do this by index or value. Index or value, right? I don't think it matters. Or does it? I mean, I think it matters in terms of how easy it'll be for us to get to the to get to the solution. I think there's one method that might be actually no, I don't think it matters. Let's do it by I don't know. What do you guys think? Index or value? Does it matter? Index? All right, let's do it by index. For I in range, length of the list. This is how we set up a loop by index, right? I want to compare every value in the list to the first value in the list. If I find a value that doesn't match, I know they're not all the same. It's not a Yahtzee, right? So how do I do that? What am I going to start typing next? I want to compare every value. If what? List at I. Not equal to list of I plus 1. Okay, so what are we checking here? We're checking to see if the value is equal to the number next to it. I think this could work. I think this could actually work, but that's not what I said we were going to do. I think this could work. I think this could be a solution, but it's not what I said. I said we were going to check every value against the first value on the list. So how does that change this? List 0, yeah. And I like that you said not equals, right? This is that same problem that we ran into with the Sherlock, I think, a couple weeks back. I'm I'm going to assume that everything is fine and try to prove that it's not, right? Because that's going to be faster. That's going to be faster. As soon as I detect something that's not a match, I'm done. I don't have to check everything else. Right? So what do I do inside of this if statement? Return false. They don't match. They don't match. Doesn't matter what the rest of the list is. I'm done. So when do I know that they all match? When I make it all the way through. So after the loop, right? If I make it through that whole loop and I don't find any mismatches, I know that they must all be the same. Does that make sense? So down here I'd say return true. Does this make sense? We've seen a similar style to this loop before. I know we have. And you'll see it again. It's a common pattern. It's a common pattern. So that doesn't solve our Yahtzee problem, though. We still have to figure out how many Yahtzees we have. Still have to figure out how many Yahtzees we have. But we can use this function to help us now, right? That's the whole point. So what am I going to start doing? What do I need to do first? Another loop. Index or value? You know the question, right? I already started typing I. Index, no. Value, no. Roll in double list. We're going to do by value. Could you do it by index? Yes, absolutely. You could. All right. What now? So what is roll going to be? Roll is going to be, what's the type? What's it look like? It's a list. It's a list of numbers. We're going to put this into our function. That's right. There we go. If all values equal roll, then what? Add one to, we need a counter, right? We need a counter. Okay. Counter equals 0. Counter plus equals 1. I think we're done. What wrong spot? We good? No, you're cool. Just making sure. I need parentheses around what? I do?
Oh, no, you don't.
I don't think so. I mean, I could. I think I could put parentheses here and it wouldn't hurt anything. I don't think I need them, though. No, that's fine. That's all right. So we're using this function to help us out here. If I pass this list in to this function and it tells me that all the values are equal, that means it's Yahtzee. I'm going to increment my counter. Let's check it. Let's see what it says. So we've got 3 4s. That's a Yahtzee. There should be 1. No Yahtzees here, right? It worked. And it should work for, I don't know why they're using 3 dice. Yahtzees play with 5. I don't know what the deal is, but it shouldn't matter, right? I should be able to make lists of whatever size that I want. So now I put in a bunch, and they didn't put spaces after. Oh, I'm not going to do that. We don't have time. We don't have time. Crispy. All right. Let's try it again, real quick. Yeah, it still works. Doesn't matter. I can give it 5 dice. I can give it 4 dice. I can give it 100 dice. It would still do what we expect it to do. Man, I don't want to roll 100 dice and get a Yahtzee, though. That would take a while. That would take a long time. Or you'd be the luckiest man on the planet. Either way. You're only around 3 rolls, yeah. Only around 3. That would be a tough one. Any questions? Yeah. This is the tricky part, if you ask me. This part right here is the tricky part. We've seen stuff similar to this before. I know this can be potentially confusing as well. I don't want to say that it's easy peasy, but we've seen it before, at least, which helps. We have not seen anything quite like this before. It's tricky. It's a tricky problem. If there aren't any questions, that's going to do it. Remember, I won't see you Thursday, so have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next week.